Hello, my dear listener, and welcome to another mystical guest episode of the Emily the Mystic Show podcast. Today's guest has so much wisdom to share with you, and she is such the perfect embodiment of someone who bridges the gap between the scientific and the spiritual. So I cannot wait to introduce you to her today, and that is Christina Brewster. Christina is a registered dietitian and nutritionist and shadow alchemist who uses medical nutrition therapy, breathwork, and witchcraft to help clients heal their relationship to food and their bodies. With over a decade of experience in the field of nutrition, Christina has seen the role toxic diet culture has had in separating us from our bodies and our divinity. By healing the channel of receiving, clients can then nourish their bodies according to their needs, not society's standards. Christina also utilizes shadow alchemy to clear malevolent spirit attachments, hexes, curses, and or soul contracts that directly impact our eating habits, how we view our bodies, and our relationship to receiving. Outside of her career, you can find Christina in her backyard with her husband, 2 kids, and Siberian Husky, occasionally running inside to stir a pot of gravy and meatballs and checking the score of the Phillies game. Amazing. Welcome, Christina, to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here, especially with a Birds and a Phillies fan.
Yes. Hello, fellow Phillies girl. I love it. And I can already hear my listener hearing your bio being like, oh my gosh, I need all aspects of this and what you do in my life. I am feeling that way personally. I'm like, oh, I need more of Christina in my life. So I can't wait to hear more about you and your story today. And I always like to kick off these episodes by getting to know you a little bit better. First of all, where are you located? Sounds like you're in Philly, but if you could just clarify that for us.
So I'm right outside Philly. I was born and raised in East Norton, Norristown. My husband and I moved to Ambler, but still just love Philly. No one
Pennsylvania girl. I love it. I love it. And can you share with us your astrology, sun, moon, and rising?
Yes, I am a Pisces sun, Capricorn moon, and Cancer rising.
Oh, I love this combo. I'm also a Pisces. So
yeah. Oh yeah. Little fish. I'm telling you, the earth sign moon really anchors us to the ground, so we don't float away.
True. And what is your human design type?
So I am a 5/1 manifesting generator, and my digestion is direct light.
Cool. Okay. What does that combination mean to you?
I actually know nothing about the 5/1.
Okay.
Nothing at all. But manifesting generator, I will definitely say I am both the fuel and the engine.
Mm-hmm. Yes, true.
Which is a lot there. But the direct light digestion is something that completely changed my life. I got a human design app, and when I saw the digestion part and it said direct light, what is that? So my system needs daylight, essentially, in order to take in food, but not just food, information. So eating, studying, reading during the daytime. I found this out about 2 weeks before I started my dietetic internship and master's program. I did all my best work, retained the most information when it was done during the day. So I completely changed my life and my schedule to be able to accommodate this, as well as my internship and mom life and being me. So I pretty much ate 85% of my calories when it was light outside. And that changed everything nourishment wise. The winter was a little bit of a struggle, but for a hobbit like me, breakfast, second breakfast, and 11sies were kind of exactly how I did it to make sure I did that. But that totally changed my entire internship. And it's exactly why I graduated with honors in my master's and not in my bachelor's.
Wow, that's amazing. Fascinating. I believe I am low sound, which is so interesting what you said about that, because I have to have low sound when eating to digest the best. And it's kind of hard for me because I love going out to eat in a busy restaurant. I love having the TV on, because that's kind of how I was raised, was having the TV on in the background while I'm eating. So I've made some subtle adjustments around that, but it's so interesting.
Yeah. And I honestly thought it was either direct light or non-direct light. I didn't even realize there were like other aspects. So that now I'm about to go down a rabbit hole.
Oh, yes. And for the listener to know, if you want to find out this information for yourself, all you have to do is go to one of the human design websites. I believe Jenna Zoe's has it. And you can look at your digestion type by putting in your birth information. So interesting.
Totally important now.
Totally. Well, Christina, I want to know about you and your journey. And again, you being this bridge between the scientific and the spiritual. I know that there is so much opportunity right now in the spiritual space for us to really become stewards of our human bodies and our temples and learn how to again connect the science with and the nutrition science with the physical vessel. So let's get into your journey. How did we get here? Feel free to start wherever you want to begin.
Absolutely. So my journey began in childhood. I just didn't know it until I was much older. I'm a second generation Italian American, all sides Italian, nothing else. Raised Roman Catholic, went to Catholic school until 5th grade. And I spent a lot of time asking questions and then having to bang erasers as punishment for asking those questions. Quite often during this time, I would experience these really weird trance-like states when we would go from like school to church. Looking back, I now know that I was visually experiencing two realities at once. And I now also know that it was altering my state of consciousness. I was essentially experiencing past lives and very violent past lives superimposed over my physical reality. And pretty scary things too. And also, sorry, trigger warning. Now that I look back, there was a significant childhood trauma that awakened a trickster spirit attachment in my solar plexus. It came to me as a genie. I was obsessed with Aladdin and like an imaginary friend. So there was a bit of a symbiotic relationship there. The manifestations of this attachment were random, unexplained nausea, car sickness, a very restrictive eating disorder, inability to stand up for myself, constantly chasing people who didn't want me. Catholicism really wasn't for me, but my mom's faith was so deep and so inspiring that, inspired by her depth of faith, I kind of wanted to search for my own way to connect with spirit. And at that time, I found Wicca. I always loved magic, Harry Potter, fairies, all that. I dabbled, but I was always afraid to do spells. I was afraid to touch tarot, the rule of 3 and all of that. And I just I don't know, but it never really felt fully aligned to be able to say what I was doing. Cut to 2012 when I had my physical body awakening. I was attending Burning Man with my cousin and a group of friends. For those of you who are not familiar with Burning Man, it is it's the largest Leave No Trace event, art festival in the entire world, where a city is essentially built up out of nothing in the middle of the Black Rock Desert. Black Rock City is what it's called. It encompasses about 6 miles, and the most common mode of transportation are bicycles. So you are your transportation, pretty much. While biking home around 4 a.m. after a lovely evening of debauchery, my body failed. And I mean like failed. I felt like a 2-year-old. My friend Brett was encouraging me, like, you got this, the whole way home. And it was so kind, but it was humiliating. I never heard myself say I can't so much. It was literally like someone pushed the off button and my body collapsed. Mm-hmm. At this point, I was kidding myself that my disordered eating wasn't completely destroying my mind and my body. But it was in that moment I realized just how starving I was and how damaged my body, my mind, and my soul had become. So during an LSD trip the next day, I saw how my eating habits could impact my future, my desire to be a mother, my desire to show up, period. And it was a complete turning point. And I focused solely on adding way more variety to my diet than just goldfishies, mac and cheese, and Italian gravy and meatballs. I ate my first orange ever at Burning Man that year.
Wow.
That's how few foods I ate. So cut to 2022 when I had my spiritual awakening. I dropped Wicca and finally started calling myself a witch. I was a mom of two, about to begin an intensive dietetic internship master's program when my family experienced something earth shattering. And I, as a human being, was completely shattered. And for the first time in my life, I chose myself and enrolled in a 6-week shadow work program. While shadow work did completely change my life, the facilitator of that program had been quietly placing attachments on all of her clients, mentees, placing portals in their homes, as well as attachments on their family members, siphoning their gifts, shutting down their gifts, siphoning their physical energy, their money-making ability, and driving general chaos in our lives. I can really only speak for myself about the situation, but it almost took me out of this world.
Mm.
That breach of ethics rocked me in a way that I wasn't prepared for, but I knew there was a divine purpose behind it. Imagine your therapist taking everything that you've ever told them, weaponizing it against you, and then turning the dial up ever so slowly on you as well as the family people around you.
Wow.
It was so much. But discovering this attachment led me to find my mentor, Kristen Ramazana, and realizing part of my purpose is to clear malevolent spirit attachments through shadow work and inner alchemy. So I signed up for 2 of her courses alongside my dietetic internship and master's program because, that's not enough. And I spent almost a full year diving into my shadow, learning about the malevolent spirit pyramid, and becoming proficient in removing these spirits. While moving through the second program, the Entity Academy, with the most amazing group of women, we had our lives, as well as our mentor's life, go up in absolute flames. Kristen's story is not mine to tell, but if there is a more intense and insane word than initiation, that is what we experienced, and her even more so. We were absolutely being ravaged by ancient malevolent spirits that sit at the very top of this spirit pyramid. Finally liberating myself from that brought me the most incredible sovereignty, self-love, and self-healing, but also, damn, that was rough.
Wow. Yeah.
We all could have done without that.
Yeah.
But being on the other side, it's like, okay. When I finally was on the other side, I began to see how malevolent spirits pressed on modern issues like body dysmorphia, disordered eating, driving self-hatred, self-imprisonment, stopping us from stepping into our true power. And this is when I really began to marry the science of nutrition with my spiritual path. At its most basic, our nutritional needs come down to receiving. Do we think we are worthy of the food that we are consuming? Do we think we're worthy of receiving anything at all?
Mm-hmm.
And it's these questions and more that are explored in my one-on-one dietetic sessions, where the priority is healing your relationship to your body and to food, not following influencer trends, calorie deficits, or making protein our entire personality. Essentially, I am an evidence-based practitioner. I am also a weight neutral practitioner as well. The focus is not ever going to be weight loss when clients work with me. The focus is healing the relationship to your body, healing the relationship to food. And it really all comes down to mini trust exercises. Trusting that you're going to make this decision, trusting yourself that you're choosing the best for yourself in that moment.
Wow. So many things, so many questions from your story. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us, and also for being vulnerable with us, because it sounds like you've been through some things that were really hard to handle. And just touching too briefly on the spiritual community that you mentioned, my dear listener, I have been in not one, but 2 challenging, malevolent spiritual communities with similar dynamics that you mentioned. So yes, we've been there. We've had the experiences. We've come out on the other side. And I can tell you, it can be so challenging to work with a mentor and a teacher who you really trust, and then have the dynamic invert itself and switch itself up on you before you even realize it. It's crazy. So thank you, Christina, for making it through to the other side.
I'm really happy too.
Oh my gosh. And I would love to know too, because you shared with us this profound moment that happened in 2012 where you literally collapsed at this music festival. You almost didn't make it home. And now here you are today helping others navigate their own connection, their own relationship with food. So, how have you seen your relationship with food, nutrition, and your relationship with your body change and evolve since that first began?
Since 2012, it's been so interesting too, because I didn't just stay in one phase of life. Like I became a mother and then I became a mother twice. And there was so much in there too.
Yeah.
So I had to, when I first became a mother, I remember my focus was like losing the weight really quickly. And then I got pregnant with my son and I had my son and then realized, why do I want to lose weight quickly? Like he likes me squishy. I also felt beautiful at the end, which was huge. I do think that I had a Kundalini awakening when I had my son. I was experiencing crazy Kundalini flashes going up my spine when I would try to put him to bed or like I would nurse him to sleep. Especially, I couldn't sit still. It felt like my body was on fire. So I think that really kind of initiated the fact that I was like loving the body that I was in. And no matter where it was. And for the first time, I remember with my son specifically, my husband and I had gone to like the Body Armor outlet. And I was upset because I was like, oh my gosh, this is the first time in my life I'm buying this particular size clothes. And I had a minute. But then I was like, why the heck do we buy clothes in aspirational sizes that make us feel uncomfortable? And I was like, F that. Under no, like that feels uncomfortable. And I'm a person who's never felt comfortable with like things that are like super high waisted, super tight, like like it makes me very nauseous. So I was like, I'm buying this size. And I bought clothes in the size that I was at that moment. And that was huge because I was dressing a different body, but I wasn't, again, doing that aspirational thing. And that was that was really, really huge. Motherhood and then everything that followed, especially the event that happened in my family in July 2022, really kind of maybe not that didn't make it was more I kind of backslid a bit, and I needed to I needed to find myself again, and I needed to re-empower myself, and it really was like, Christina, you're missing the witchcraft. Like you are, to your bones, to every fiber of your being, you are a witch. And and shadow work had been following me at that time. And finally that 2022, it was like, no, you're a witch. You're doing this, go. And I started to dress differently. There were a lot of times that I wouldn't wear I wouldn't wear a bra when normally I would get that comment from people in my life, have some self-respect. You should be wearing a bra or this. And I was like, I don't care. I started dressing how I wanted to dress, not really following the trends and things like that. And realizing like, this is me. And I don't care if it makes me look like I'm from the 90s. Like, I love my age. I love where I am. And it really just turned into a whole love fest about me. And it was like putting on a Spice Girls concert in my head. It was like, nobody needs to know how ridiculous the girl power concert is in my head. But it was looking at myself at my most vulnerable and realizing that I didn't like myself during that time. And if I felt that everybody else didn't like me either, I had nobody behind me. And my body has carried me through so many experiences, and not just 2 childbirths. I am so incredibly lucky to be alive in this body, in this lifetime. And that gratitude like exploded inside of me. And I started to speak differently about my body, speak to my body differently. Once my daughter and my son especially got to older ages, they don't hear me say negative things about my body. If I want to move or if I feel like I've been too sedentary, I don't say, oh, I feel fat, I feel this.
Yeah.
Mommy wants to move her body. I want to feel a little bit stronger today. Or, I need to feed myself. I need some energy. Not saying that certain foods are bad, but really realizing the power of my speech and the power of my speech towards myself and my body. Like, we've heard that experiment that I think a child did at a science fair. They had 2 plants, and for a month they spoke good words of affirmation to one, and they said horrible things to the other. The one that had horrible things said to it did not grow well. The other one thrived. Every
Yes.
culture, every indigenous culture on this planet, most religions all talk about creation and life beginning with the word and the power of the word. So if we have that much power in our speech, our thoughts, as well as the way we speak about ourselves, our body's listening. And if we keep saying, I hate my body, I hate my paunch, which, by the way, the paunch is our internal organs.
True. Yeah.
Someone has convinced us to try to lose our internal organs.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
is the rage that the fuel that I add to my rage fire of continuing the Little Spice Girls concert in my head, blocking out all the BS, because it is a lot of deconstruction as well. There's so much out there, and it is all to keep us distracted. Because if you think about it, when you have a day where you hit your hydration goals, you have a really satisfying bowel movement, and then you have an interaction with a loved one or something where normally it would have gotten out of control, but instead you were more sovereign, you spoke your truth. Can anything stop you on that day?
Nope.
That cost $0, that did not go into capitalism, and it was literally like 100% you.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, really all we need is good hydration and a really good poop, and we're unstoppable? What else are they trying to stop us from?
Oh my gosh, it's so true. And I feel like the diet industry has tried to drag women down for so long. And it starts so young. And especially now with social media and what our kids are being exposed to with, oh my gosh, all the fitness influencers. Everyone's trying to, sell you some kind of supplement to like be your magic pill to fix the problem and all of the things. And I love how what you shared is so organic, it's so natural, and it's so simple.
Exactly. And the simplicity of it is what I like to highlight with my clients too. The other thing too is, if you need any more evidence than this, the wellness industry is what, an $8 trillion industry. Do we have an influx of healthy people in this country? If the wellness industry was as effective as half the people claim that it is, we would have a healthy population. We don't.
True.
So
Yeah.
what we have is BS. And one of my personal favorite things that I found out in the last month is that Weight Watchers is going bankrupt. And they flat out admitted that their entire business model is predicated upon their clients' failure.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's wild.
I had to breathe through that article. I'm Italian. The rage, I am Mount Etna with that type of stuff. I have the most incredible clients, and a majority of them did use Weight Watchers. And usually in the first session, I would hear, when I was on Weight Watchers, I looked this way and I did this and I did that and I did that. If you need to eat 1,200 calories a day to be thin, baby, you're not supposed to be thin. And thinness is not an indicator of health. At my thinnest, I didn't have a period. At my thinnest, my bones were sticking out. At my thinnest, I used to get compliments from people when they had no idea that I was like 75 pounds.
Wow.
That is, and actually, I remember trying to go to one of my instructors at the end of my bachelor's degree and saying, like, I think I have an eating disorder. I think I have a problem. I'm not sure where to go. I'm not sure what to do. She's like, well, Christina, you look great.
Oh,
I look
that's
great.
insane.
It was like,
Wow.
and the thing is, my chest was covered. She couldn't see the ribs. She couldn't see anything. And it was so shocking. And then to also have to like go into a doctor's appointment and like yell at my doctor, like, you missed this diagnosis. And I'm very angry about it. Like, I was back here 6 months ago and you weighed me with my winter boots on, a jacket. I walked into an appointment thinking that was going to be the moment. That's going to be the moment you get called out, Christina. I got weighed with all of my winter clothes on and walked out of that appointment going, everyone thinks I look great.
There's nothing wrong with you. You're
There's nothing.
fine.
I made myself lose my menstruation for 3 months and I was in no way pregnant. That
Mm.
was, I think that was really the most, that was really the most shocking thing. I was like, oh my gosh, I stopped being a woman for 3 months because of what I was doing. And
Wow.
disordered eating goes in all directions. People are of all different shapes and sizes, backgrounds, the whole thing. And what really frustrates me is hearing people in bigger bodies when they sit down in front of a clinician and say, I think I have disordered eating, or I think this, or that I have a binge eating problem, or whatever. There's always that, oh, well, you could stand to lose a little bit of weight. That sounds
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a you problem. That doesn't sound like that patient's problem. And the BMI is not a standalone diagnostic tool, meaning you cannot look at someone's BMI and diagnose them with a disease, because there are people out there like, Saquon Barkley, who is nothing but muscle and is technically going to probably show up as overweight or obese. Incorrect.
Yeah.
The BMI was made by a mathematician who studied white male bodies only. A standalone diagnostic tool would be something like the metabolic profile or the blood work that you get at a physical, because you could look there and go, your hemoglobin is low. You have iron deficiency anemia. Your vitamin D is low. Your cholesterol is high. Though that is a diagnostic tool based in fact, based in evidence. The only time I ever consider the BMI is when I'm in the ICU or in the hospital calculating somebody's tube feeding needs, because it is medically necessary when it comes to something as specific as tube feeding, most especially for people that are in the ICU on tube feeding or unconscious.
Mm.
Otherwise, it is a completely useless tool to me and insulting, because you literally, like, is that a white male body is the only body on this planet?
Wow.
So BMI.
Wow. So just you are already dispelling so many dietary myths today. Oh my gosh, we need to hear this. And so what this reflects back to me is that our relationship with our bodies, especially as women, is so complicated, because we're given these quote unquote measures of health and success that we should aspire to be or aspire to have that are really just nonsense. And then we're seeing all of these people on social media and in magazines, and their size is not representative of who we should be internally or how we should feel. And so my question for you is, when we start this journey of self-love and body love and getting comfortable in our own skin, where do you start that journey with your clients? Or what do we need to take a look at first?
The first thing I like to bring up is that it's going to be uncomfortable. The space that I work within is kind of like the birth canal. Ain't nobody enjoying anything on either side of that. It is uncomfortable work, and it's also not perfect. And because healing isn't linear, it's going to be a bit of a journey. And it is uncomfortable if you've spent your entire life damning yourself, hating this part of your body, hating this, hating that. When we do that, that neural pathway is so deeply ingrained. It's harder to move the needle out of that pathway without falling back in. So I like to be realistic and say, this is going to be a little uncomfortable. We're going to have days where we don't choose that, and all of it is okay. I work a lot with metaphors, and I like to give the metaphor of falling off the horse. We've been told our entire life that when you fall off the horse, it's a moral failure. It's not. So if falling off the horse is not a moral failure, it's something we should prepare for, because again, no one's perfect. The most disciplined person out there, if they're claiming that they're perfect, sorry, BS, and you're setting us all up for failure.
Mm-hmm.
So what I like to kind of go back and forth with my clients so when we fall off the horse, what is it that makes it so hard for us to get back on the horse? Usually when we're on the ground, we're beating the crap out of ourselves. you're this, you're that. I can't believe you did this. I can't believe it was just a simple goal, like all those horrible things.
Yeah.
So if we reframe that entire metaphor and go, falling off the horse is not a moral failure, it's expected. Let's plan for it. And let's kind of turn it into something funny, kind of like, I don't know, a person at a party who walks through the screen door. Like, oh, geez, what did I just do? I just fell off the horse. And when you're on the ground, how do we make it easier to get back on the horse? When you're on the ground in your most vulnerable, your saddest, do you want Jillian Michaels coming in and saying nasty things to you?
True.
Absolutely not.
We sure don't.
Absolutely not. So if anything, it's like, how about we put up a little fort over you, put some fairy lights and put a little blanket on you? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a moral failure to be kind and gentle with ourselves when we fall off that horse. So when we go, oh, I fall off the horse, and then you're on the ground and you're kind to yourself. You know what? Today was insane. That's why I fell off the horse. I'm overwhelmed. I want to do some breath work. I want to do a self-pleasure practice. I want to sit on the couch and put my face in a pillow and scream. I want to binge watch Golden Girls or something. But realizing that space of where you are when you fall off the horse to getting back on requires kindness and gentleness. And that as well is not a moral failure. So then it makes it easier to get back up on the horse because we haven't just beat the crap out of ourselves. We just went, you know what? Today was crappy. Let's give you a little fort. Let's give you a sanctuary. And then you can start over the next day because your next day's schedule might be completely different. My last week, I was more affected the day after the full moon last week than the day of. I used that day in my client sessions because every single habit, every single thing I thought I was past happened on the 13th, which funny enough. And I was like, oh my goodness. And the funniest thing about it was that when I woke up on the 14th, I didn't go into the guilt and shame cycle that I normally do. I just woke up and lived my day. And I got to about noon, get off with a client, and I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't beat myself up for yesterday. And was like, who's this? Who is this girl? And I was like, this is it. This is exactly what I've been explaining to my clients. And now I'm finally starting to live it in a more organic fashion. I didn't even have to think about it, but it's not like it didn't come without work. It's taken me personally years to be able to get to that point where I'm very hard on myself. I reference, what's his name? Silas from the Da Vinci Code who flogs himself. I reference that very, very often in a lot of my client sessions, because that's, especially if we have religious conditioning, we think that we need to punish ourselves. If you've ever read the Four Agreements, true justice is someone being punished for something they did once. When we go into these spirals over and over and over again, we are constantly bringing it up, constantly punishing ourselves over and over and over again. That's not justice. And that's not justice for ourselves. So how can we stop that? Again, you don't have to punish yourself. You know what? There was a goal that I wanted to do and I didn't do it. Okay.
The world's not going to end. Yeah.
Exactly. That too. The world isn't going to end because I didn't hit my water goal today because I couldn't find any of my water cups or any of my water bottles. And I had to use glasses the whole day. Or my kid was home from school and my day completely blew up because they were sick. Well, instead of beating myself up over that, my kid is sick. My baby's sick. I don't need anything. I don't need anything more than that. And it took a lot of work, and it took a lot of stopping that nasty inner monologue that I can only speak for myself. I know I have. And if it starts with one thing and then it'll weave into another, into another, into another. So I had to stop that spiral. But it also did have to do with me removing a lot of malevolent spirit attachments, taking out a lot of karmic contracts, curses, hexes, a lot of those things as well. Because the energetic signature and the energetic imprints of those things were, I don't even know what. Just,
Yeah.
they were blowing up my life.
Yes. I want to talk about that next.
Mm-hmm.
And before we do, I also want to hear a little bit about how your spiritual gifts started unfolding, because I found it so interesting what you shared about your childhood experience with going to church and seeing these two different kind of dimensional veils. I find that fascinating because I also went to Catholic school, and it's sort of connecting some dots for me with those times when I would have to go to mass on Fridays at school, and I felt like it was a weird out of body experience. And I would often feel dizzy or ungrounded or unwell. And I did not know how to like connect the dots or understand what was going on with
Mm-hmm.
me. So I'm so glad that you shared that. Obviously, you were a sensitive child. So what did that journey look like with seeing your sensitivity, understanding it, and starting to have these spiritual experiences that developed later on in life?
It's so bizarre because there are a lot of black spots in my childhood because of trauma. But there are also moments where I would remember I would see like a dark shadow figure with a hat, which was the trickster. I would always see things, or my big thing too is I didn't realize clairsentience. When I stand in front of someone who is either just flat out lying to me or not living their truth, it feels like nails on a chalkboard inside my body.
Yeah.
And as a child, and especially because the trauma that I endured happened at 5, I always felt like I was being electrocuted. That's the best way that I can describe. My nervous system was always insane. I was needed to be very, very hyper vigilant. And my gifts were weird. I don't know how to explain that. And then I always had really, really vivid dreams. I had really vivid recurring dreams that were horribly, horribly violent. That was the trickster. I shouldn't have been seeing the things that I was seeing at 5. And it was
Wow.
and it was the same thing like over and over. When that spiritual awakening happened, interestingly enough, that facilitator allowed me to access my third eye for the first few weeks of that program. And then all of a sudden, everything went dark.
Oh,
Everything went
interesting.
dark. Especially my third eye, because I was seeing things really, really clear to the point where I was like, this is so cool. I always used to be able to like have images superimposed over reality. Like, and I always used to say, it's like someone playing a movie, and especially violent images, really horribly. And I could never stop them. Well, because of this person and what they did, it shut down my gifts, but put me in this frequency of fear all the time. And I was getting bombarded with these visualizations of different horrifying, horrifying deaths. Leaving that program, everything got worse. And it's like my gifts were being electrocuted. They were random. It would come out of nowhere. I know I'm very clairaudient. I've been a musician my whole life. That went in a minute. I had that maybe for a couple of weeks in the beginning of it. And then, gone. So I had to discover what was happening. Thank you. What is it? Thank you for Saturn moving into Pisces.
Yeah.
Thank God for that. Unfortunately, it took me about 6 months later to realize what was actually happening. But I was like, I don't have my guides. I can't see them. I don't see anything. And I even think when you and I had that session together, was it like last year or something? My pa came through, and he's like my guide.
Yep.
Like he is like one of my main guides. And I started sobbing because you had said, you're like, of course I'm here. Of course I'm here. And I'm like,
yeah. You couldn't see him.
I couldn't see, I couldn't
Wow.
feel.
Yeah.
Everything was gone. And it made me question, is this real? Is this that? It made me question everything. So then I reached out to Kristen, and I did my first malevolent spirit, like entity clearing. And we found this trickster in my solar plexus. Oh my goodness. It was the most profound experience ever. And it like launched me on my journey, but I went from nothing, no gifts, no nothing, to doing this clearing. And I saw everything. And in the few days leading up to the clearing, I was hallucinating and seeing crazy things. I'm in my garage and I see a man, like an Italian man in a suit, running at me. I'm like, gone, gone. I was, oh my gosh, the smell of shaving cream in my, like, if you've ever been around Italian men, there's a very distinctive shaving cream smell. It was only in my laundry room until this clearing.
Oh my God.
I walked in the house and the first thing I did was walk right into the laundry room, gone.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh. Then I pretty much couldn't eat for about 21 days. My solar plexus, like, there was like nothing there. It was insane. And this was a lifetime, which I found out that I was my great grandmother, Josephine, in a past life. And she was sent to a place called Byberry, which I'm not sure if you know. Byberry is like similar to Penhurst. Byberry is in, what you call, is that North Philly? Yeah, it's off Route 1. But she was sent to Byberry, endured horrific suffering and all of that. And unpacking that lifetime really helped start to open my gifts better, because not only was she sent there because of, her husband was horrible, but she was also experiencing things. And if I had those same people around me, I probably would now be called schizophrenic, because the malevolent spirits that I can see are exactly what Josephine was seeing. And there were times she'd be walking down the streets in South Philly and she would see these things coming out of the dark. She would see these things. Well, on top of that, she was being horribly abused, horribly abused. That lifetime I've had to go back to many, many times. And it really helped with the crazy wound. It helped with my sisterhood wound, because her sisters literally did nothing and allowed her to be erased. It was a really supercharged lifetime. And very slowly, I'm starting to isolate my gifts. Now it just doesn't feel like bombardment. Now, when I sit in meditation, I'll see things. If I'm having trouble with that gift, I'll go, okay, let's do clairsentience, and I'll start to go through, okay, do I feel this on my left side? Are you on my left side? Are you here? And I started to feel my guides. When we address the malevolent spirit pyramid and all of that through the Entity Academy, was when I discovered something called glamour. And glamour isn't just the glamour magic that we think of, like, oh, I'm doing pretty magic or this. Glamour magic is actually terrifying. Glamour can be completely invisible until you actually see it. A glamour could be something like a malevolent spirit will literally encase you inside of an egg casing that is clear. And if you don't see it, you won't know it's there. So when I hear gifts being shut off, is when I'm like, all right, what's going on? Because the glamour also prevents us from finding the malevolent spirit as well. And especially having things over my third eye, having things around my entire aura as well. Now, whenever I begin a meditation, I am fully asking my guides to remove me from any egg casings, because our guides are powerful and they are there. But when something malevolent steps in, it's not that they're able to block our guides. They are blocking us from experiencing our guides. So At one point, it was literally like a curtain was down in front of me. But then one day the curtain raised and I could see their feet. And I'm literally looking at Sekhmet's lion feet, Mary Magdalene's naked feet, Anubis's dog feet. And I was like, okay, they're there. They're there. They're there. And moving through this pyramid, it finally blasted through. And my guides are very much there. They are very much around me. And I've slowly started to repair the relationship with them, which has manifested in me being able to differentiate my gifts when they come through. The claircognizance is something I really struggle with because of the crazy wound, imposter syndrome, and all of that. How do I just know? How do I know that I'm just knowing? That kind of dance that we do. But now when I get a lightning bolt of inspiration or a lightning bolt of something, I trust it. I don't even bother asking about it because I had to do so much of the unsexy back end work. And sometimes it's like, it's kind of like an antibiotic. You hit it hard and fast for like 10 days and then you stop. So imagine having to clear yourself 2-3 times a day for 10 days straight. I'm a mom. I was also doing this when my life was falling apart. I was getting ready to graduate from college, from my master's degree, while going through something insanely unethical in my class and like all of this life stuff. And I'm like having to clear myself 2 times a day.
Wow.
It was the energetic overload of that was crazy. But I also knew that I got to a point where I could tell if I put my foot off the gas, the spirits would just swarm and be like, we got you. And that's where I felt the divine purpose. And I swear this is always my pa. My pa is the one who I think pushes through some of these more incredible things when there is a lot of infiltration. And I could just like feel him at my back. And he's like, keep your foot on the pedal. And I'm actually going through that right now with some of the information that I learned recently and attacking the spirit pyramid. And I'm kind of doing that now. I'm using it like an antibiotic. And I'm doing meditations either every 2 days or every 3 days. And I'm like doing it for a certain amount of time. I'm addressing a very specific malevolent spirit while I'm doing it. And that is my pure focus. And even last night, I could feel my pot being like, I think you need to do this tonight. I think you need to do this tonight. It meant that I wasn't able to spend as much time with my husband like I wanted to last night. It meant that I laid on my daughter's floor a little bit longer than I would have because I was in meditation for about an hour and 20 minutes. But what was on the other side and the enlightenment that came from that, I could just feel my pa being like, okay, tomorrow you can focus on yourself. That was a lot. Let's see what your schedule looks like for the rest of the week. And I can feel that like keep your foot on the gas because you're moving forward. You're putting yourself where you need to be.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Yes. And I also find too that for those of us who are drawn to doing more of the entity release work, you have to go through the release and the experiences in your own life before you are ready to help your clients navigate it as well. And I have to interrupt this podcast episode to tell you about a product that I am absolutely obsessed with and have been loving so much. And that is Elix Cycle Balance. This incredible women's hormonal health supplement that was created on the foundation of Chinese medicine helps you balance your hormones so that you can feel better every single day of your cycle. For me, this incredible supplement helped me on my journey getting off of hormonal birth control and has helped me feel so good. I have so much energy. I have very limited physical symptoms, especially during my cycle, and I just feel good. So I cannot recommend this stuff to you enough. I am not a huge supplement person. I don't take a ton of supplements. So for me, it's just my daily multivitamin and this and some elderberry that I take for immune support, and that's it. And this has really changed the game for me. If you want to give it a try, go ahead, check out the link in the show notes and use code 15EmilyL for 15% off. Can you speak a little bit about how the entities, the malevolent energies, the curses, the hexes, all of it, how that impacts someone's relationship with their health, their body, their eating, their receiving? And what do you notice with your clients, maybe some of the symptoms that they experience when they come to you? And then can you talk us through a little bit of that journey with the signs and symptoms they may be experiencing to recognizing the spirit, to doing the release, and then how they feel afterwards?
Mm-hmm. So really when it comes to that part of it, it's first, let's identify exactly what you're feeling and also the emotions that are associated with it. So it's not just the physical experiences. Either if somebody's digestion is overactive or if they're having a lot of constipation, we'll always talk about that. When I hear people saying a lot of negative things about their body, I always notate those things as well. And especially the locations of their, usually, especially women, they will usually pinpoint a specific part on their body that they don't like. And I usually try to is it the paunch? Is it that really feminine area? Or is it like their arm or something? And I kind of try to interpret that, especially the paunch part of it too. I'm like, boom, divine feminine. Let's work
Yeah.
on that. And then also I try to integrate movement practice in as well. And I try to find out, what is your movement practice like? When I hear people say that they have the same 15 to 20 pounds, that doesn't feel like theirs, they do 6 days of high intensity workout and this and that, and they're in a calorie deficit. And on paper, that should be melting off of them. When I hear something like that, I go, there's a trauma there. Your fascia, your connective tissue is holding on to something there. So that's when I even start to talk about like myofascial release. And like, I always go to YouTube first. There's a lot of gatekeeping with health and money. So I always think the free version, like if someone was going through a spiritual awakening and had no money to spend outside of bills, how do you have a spiritual awakening utilizing free resources? So I will always utilize something like YouTube first. YouTube for myofascial release or yin yoga, so we can integrate the masculine and feminine energies into the movement practices, and then also into the nourishment practices as well. Because the masculine and feminine, when they are separated, they are not in their divine, they are wounded. So when I hear like chronic diseases, or when I hear I can't lose this same 15 pounds, I am seeing a divide there. And so I'm like, okay, let's start to repair that divide, and let's work on the physical body and embodiment as well. And that's when I begin discussing the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous systems, so we can connect with the body, because we're oftentimes dissociated. And when we are dissociated, we're not able to pick up on those subtle signs of I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. Burnout culture is what we live through. And we're just taught to just go, 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 go without stopping. Well, that often puts us in this place of stress all the time, and we're not able to pick up on those subtle symptoms. So we kind of explain the biology of breath work, and then also realize that it is part of every indigenous culture on the world, and it's tens of thousands of years old, and it's how we connect with the divine. So I usually will explain to my clients, we're going to start with breath work, and I usually root it in science with the vagus nerve, the fact that all of our organs are connected to that vagus nerve, and that it's a multi-directional communication system in constant communication. If you're a nerd and you need data and you have an Apple Watch, you could do a sympathetic breath work and watch your heart rate go up instantly. You can do parasympathetic breath work and watch your heart rate go down instantly. For my data-driven nerds, they need that. And that helps them stick to this. I have people integrating breath work 3 times a day for 60 seconds only. It's not even anything complicated. It could be the alternating nostril breathing, or it could be the 4-7-8 breath work. I like the 4-7-8 personally because it really focuses on the exhale, which is what is activating our parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest. So we're slowly starting to connect the mind and the body. So we really start with that breath work. And then when breath work starts, all of a sudden they're like, I had the greatest bowel movements last week. I felt really great. Or, my kids were really, really crazy and they were having a really hard time. And I noticed in the moment I went, and then my son did it. And then we were able to relate a little bit better. And he just told me that he was feeling sad or scared, and we talked. And then all of a sudden, the next day I was working and it was a crazy day, and this person's a nurse. It's like, I wanted to tell you this. I ate a snack in the middle of my shift and I did it without guilt. And then it's like, okay, so it's slow little connections of like driving the mind and body together, but then realizing like we're allowed to listen to our body, and my body is going to be different than yours. My body is different than my neighbors. We are all living completely different schedules, and the breath work really kind of helps us realize that we need to customize this work and customize the embodiment work that we do for our body. Because I have some clients that, like my male clients, they are copy and paste every day. The same thing every single day, and they thrive. My male clients thrive on that 24-hour hormonal cycle. They get their peak in the middle of the day. They're doing their workouts then, but they can copy and paste each day and thrive. my female clients, and my clients that have a uterus, they literally are on a 28 day to a 36-day cycle.
Yeah.
So we start to stretch out their days. Instead of it being 24 hours, it's let's see what you can do over 3 days. And then all of a sudden their digestion is more relaxed. They're realizing they're not on this 24-hour schedule for things. And then they're like, oh, maybe I could integrate a little meal prep in here. Maybe I could batch cook some proteins on this day. It doesn't need to be 8 hours on a Saturday doing meal prep. That's not realistic. But all of a sudden, because we stretched out their day a little bit, then they're realizing, oh, I could prioritize this. I could prioritize myself. And they're starting to experience a more relaxed way of living, of moving through life and nourishing your body and doing it according to their body's schedule, not what some wellness influencer says or not what this person says or even what a doctor says. It's let's figure out you, customizing all of this to you. And then what happens on the other side, it is really interesting to see it too, because, oh my gosh, one of my clients, she's just so amazing. She's worked so hard at just listening to herself and honoring herself that like every time I see her, she sits up straighter. And I haven't heard her say a bad thing about herself in like 7 weeks. And every single day, like she's eating more fiber and she's drinking her water and she loves doing it. And she hasn't like dropped all of this weight, but she's carrying herself like a queen. And she's not hunched over and hiding. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
Those shoulders are thrown back. That crown is firmly sitting on her head. But it took a lot of work on the back end. And higher self-work is actually where I start with my clients, not even deity work. Because when we're trying to fix things like body dysmorphia, body hatred, all of that, it needs to be the higher self first. So usually that's what I'll bring in. I have some meditations that I'll give clients to start doing that higher self work and, bring that in front of you. Of course, discernment, make sure it is your higher self and not something trying to whatever. But doing that higher self work constantly and realizing like it's you're supposed to be pouring into. And then once you can see you, then you can start to notice where the infiltration is coming from. Is it coming from over here? Is something, and I do have some spiritual clients too, because it's when I work with the company Nourish, it is through insurance. So I've got to stick to dietetics things and things like that. But I have some witchy clients that we integrate this into their practice and into the dietetics work that we do. And it started to just blossom their own spiritual practice as well. And now we're even, I think I had mentioned to you before, I got a cute little cup from the store. It makes me really happy. And it's yellow, solar plexus. And I got an idea from one of your podcasts, actually, where you had Emily the Fitness Witch. And she has this way of speaking that's so cute. It's just like, girl, you're a witch. Why aren't you using a witch to lose weight? Or why aren't you using your witchcraft to do this? So I got the idea to essentially like charm my cup. And before I even put anything in it, I just kind of like sat there and I did a little breath work and I called in, 2 of my guides. And I was like, everything that I consume out of this is going to nourish me. It's going to hydrate me. It's going to motivate me. It's going to purge blah, blah, blah from my field. And now I don't want to use anything else. And I love this cup so much. It makes me so happy. But I realized, girl, you're a witch. So I started kind of letting my clients know about that. And now I have clients that are like enchanting little tiny cups or enchanting their lunchbox that they bring to work. And just tiny little ways that you can weave that witchcraft and like spirituality into your life. Because it isn't always just about nourishment when we have disordered eating patterns. Sometimes it's that we're starving for spirituality. We're starving for connection. I started reading a book one of my clients suggested. I have to find it on here. It has blown my mind. And it is Eating in the Light of the Moon.
Okay, I've never heard of it.
And it's funny because she does a lot with metaphors. And I like that because I think it helps our clients like visualize things better.
Mm-hmm.
But it's exactly talking about, it's not just about nourishment. It's not just about food. What are you taking in? What's our social media look like? Oftentimes in my first client sessions, you know what? Maybe this might be a time to clean up your social media account. Are you following people in aspirational sizes? Are you following people that live lifestyles that are nothing like yours and you're trying to match them? If something doesn't inspire you, challenge you, get you to think, does it deserve to be at the temple of Christina? And essentially what I'm trying to do is, throughout this work together, we are building and fortifying the temple of whomever I'm sitting in front of, and realizing that you are that gatekeeper. You're right at the foot of those steps. And everything, even if it is your loved ones, your family, everything that comes to the foot of those steps, they need to prove that they are worthy to enter the temple of Emily, enter the temple of Christina. If they're not, bye.
Hell yeah. Yes.
Absolutely. We're not going to entertain any of that nonsense. But we are building and fortifying the temple over those weeks, and just like, oh, there's a little crack here. We're going to work on that crack. Where did that crack come from? Oh, I see what's going on over there. Let's address that.
Yep. I love it. I love all of these tips so much. Yes, yes, yes. And I would love to know, can you explain to us the different ways that someone can work with you? What does that look like?
So right now I have a referral link through a company called Nourish. They accept like hundreds and hundreds of types of insurance. And that is really where I'm flexing my medical nutrition therapy, my registered dietitian muscle. I weave spirituality into that, but it's one of those things where like I have to be able to submit it to insurance.
Yeah.
Which has actually motivated me to want to create my own group program and things like that. So I started walking myself through a group program that I want to put into practice. I did have to stop because I had some malevolent spirit effery that happened. So I'm currently addressing that. But outside of my referral link, I am planning on, I'd say probably in the middle of summer, I'm going to be launching a group program that is going to be really marrying the science and the spiritual, and really integrating the shadow work, the energy clearing part of it into our pretty much into this type of work that we do, as well as something I like to call cycle tracking. For anyone that menstruates, we will go through the entirety of your cycle and figure out not only what you're experiencing physically, but emotionally, mentally. Do you get into your luteal phase, and does your mentality go down? Do you find yourself in different like negative spirals, things like that? So I just found that the company I'm working with just isn't serving my clients in the way I want to. So it's really motivated me to want to put together a group program so I can just help more people, as well as make it my own and make it as witchy as I need to be without the insurance companies being like, what's this?
Yes. Do you offer entity clearings for people?
Currently, I do not. I'm still practicing doing on like my group people. I'm doing like one-on-ones with them. I want to get more comfortable doing that because I've been doing it mostly on myself.
Okay.
And I'm comfortable with that. But then I'm starting to do it with my friends. And then I'll start offering that probably in the next like month or two, as I start to step out. But as you probably experience, it's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary to say you're a witch in public. It's scary to take these steps. And with each step I take on my new timeline, something comes in. I've lived some pretty profound lifetimes in the past, and the infiltration is aggressive. So if I move too fast, the infiltration moves just as fast. I've had to slow myself down. Now I'm focusing on my one-on-one appointments with my clients. We're doing it through insurance. And I'm slowly putting